everyone, I'm David Ringstrom, a CPA in Atlanta, and welcome to our presentation on what-if analysis features. Over the course of our time today, we're going to be looking at the what-if analysis features in Excel, and I will draw a contrast between the if function, which is used for decision making. So Excel has logic functions that we can use for decision making. We can use what-if analysis tools, and so the verbiage can blur a little bit, and so I will draw a distinction between the two. We're going to see some ways that we can automate some of our work in Excel. One of the features we'll be looking at is the Scenario Manager, which allows you to swap different sets of inputs in and out of your spreadsheet. We'll also look at the Goal Seek feature, which allows you to solve for a single missing input within a formula. And so rather than having to type in different numbers on your own, you can automate that by letting Excel do that number crunching. Then we'll also look at the Solver feature. And so Solver can be used as kind of a goal seek on steroids, but also I'm going to show you how we can use Solver. We'll work through a little example where, let's say that we have a series of bank deposits and we want to figure out which transactions add up to a certain amount. We'll be able to use Solver to do that. So that's where we're headed over the course of our time today. I'm going to be teaching from the Microsoft 365 version of Excel today. Most everything I talk about today will work in any version of Excel. We are going to talk about the forecast feature, which does require Excel 2016 and later, in case you're using a version older than that. But most everything else should look and feel and work the same way across the different versions of Excel. If I have included anything along the way that does require a newer version of Excel, it will be noted on the slides. I will show everything at least twice. I'll first walk you through it on the PowerPoint slides, which are very detailed and have numbered steps, and then I'll go over to Excel and carry out those techniques firsthand. If you need the handouts for today, you can email me, ask@davidringstrom.com. Always happy to provide the handouts to you. So let's get a sense at where the what-if analysis features are located in Excel. The menu interface across the top of the screen is known as the ribbon, and so if we go to the Data tab of the ribbon, step 2 there, we can see that there's a what-if analysis command. When we click on that, that brings down a drop-down menu or a sub-menu where we can choose from Scenario Manager, Goal Seek, and then the Data Table feature. One thing that gets a little tricky in Excel is when features have similar names, and so we'll see that data tables allow us to create or basically swap different sets of inputs through a formula. I want to distinguish that from pivot tables, which are a report writing feature, and also the table feature, which is used to manage lists in Excel. So 3 different features, pretty major features, have the word table in their name. We'll see exactly how data tables work, but again, pivot tables are used for report writing and tables are used for managing lists of data in Excel. Step 4 there, we see the forecast sheet command. That's available in Excel 2016 and later. When you create a forecast, it allows you to take activity for a period of time, date-based data, and then forecast it further into the future. So that will create forecast sheets that can be created in Excel 2016 but can be viewed in older versions of Excel. That's not always the case. Many times when Microsoft adds new functionality, that functionality then cannot be viewed in older versions of Excel. You will run into that frequently with charts in particular, but other features that you can generate the information in a new version of Excel, but you can't open it or work with it in an older version. Finally, the step 5 there, the Solver command probably doesn't appear on your Data tab yet. That's because it's turned off by default. So it is a special add-in that we are going to need to enable, and then once we enable it, then it will appear on your data menu. So just to hop over to Excel and just give you a quick lay of the land here, we're going to go to the Data tab. We'll see that there is a what-if analysis command here. So we're working through the Scenario Manager, the Goal Seek feature, and then also the Data Table feature. Next to what-if analysis, Excel 2016 later, is the forecast sheet command. All versions of Excel, Solver will appear once you enable it, and so we'll see how to enable Solver and then use it a bit later. For now, though, what I want to do is draw a contrast between the what if features we're going to talk about and the if function. Because here again, we have a situation where we have a worksheet function that has if in its name, and it is easy to kind of blur things together. So the if function is used to make decisions in Excel within a formula. The if function has 3 arguments. There is a logical test, and that's going to be some sort of calculation that can be expressed as either true or false. And so with these calculations, you're typically going to be using operators such as greater than, equal in this case. But there is also a series of is functions, so is blank, is number, is text. And so any of the is functions in Excel, those also return true or false. So in the logical test, as long as it's some sort of calculation that results in true or false, then it's fair game to put in that position of your formula. The next argument is the value of true. So this is what to do if the logical test returns true. And so you can put text, as we see. You can put another formula. You can put a number. You can put another, if function inside, because you can nest up to 64 levels of if functions. Now, that is very much a not that you would, but you could scenario in my view, because honestly, I was happy up through Excel 2003 when we were limited to nesting up to 8 levels of if functions. I find personally that if I try to nest more than 2 or 3 levels of if functions, and there's always exceptions to the rule, but in general, a general litmus test is that if I'm trying to stack, more than 2 or 3 levels of if functions, there's typically a better way to approach whatever it is I'm trying to do there. Lots of folks use the if kind of as a blunt instrument, and the more ifs that you nest inside each other, it becomes exponentially harder to test every scenario and make sure that every calculation is going to return the result that you're seeking there. So do be mindful when you're trying to stack one if inside of the other if you start getting beyond 2 or 3 levels. The third argument is the value of false, and that's what to display or calculate if our test returns false there. Another thing we need to watch out for when we're creating if functions, if we're using operators, is to make sure that we get the operators right. So in cell B2, I purposefully wrote the formula incorrectly so that you can see the intent was I'm trying to test to see if the score, if the score is greater than or equal to 60, it needs to be a pass, otherwise it needs to return fail. But in this case, because I left out the equal sign, because A2 is not greater than 60, it incorrectly returns fail when that should have been a passing grade, by the skin of the teeth, but still a passing grade. So we do have to be mindful of the operators to make sure that we use them correctly with our formulas. So over in Excel, let's try this out. So let's just say that we'll do 60, we'll do this twice here. And so we'll say if A2 is greater than 60, we'll put pass, or we'll put fail. And so that's an example of the if function. It's testing to see, is this greater than 60? It's not, so it returns fail. To write the formula correctly, I would say if A2 greater than equal to 60. In that case, I could put pass, or again, I could put a number or a calculation, but in this case, I'll just put fail here. Now, another tip about crafting if functions, many times what I'll do when I'm writing these formulas is I will use words such as pass or fail or yes or no, something like that, or true or false even, as placeholders. And so when we're writing complex formulas, it does help to write them one stage at a time. And so if you start writing a formula and just go for it and try to wing the whole formula, particularly if it's a formula that's going to run, an entire row of the formula bar or more, it becomes ever harder to get everything just right and not end up losing the whole formula and starting over again. The fast way is to go what feels like the slow way, which is to write one piece at a time and make sure that it works and then keep adding to the formula. And so using words as placeholders and then circling back and then replacing that with a calculation, that's a very effective way to ensure that you're writing if functions that have proper integrity. We're going to look at using the PMT function, or how to use the PMT function, because I'm going to be using it as an example in our what-if analysis features. As we get into the what-if analysis features, we'll have kind of a common thread that will be using the PMT function, and then also a sibling function that's called cumulative interest payment function that calculates the interest for any period of time for a loan. The PMT function itself, though, calculates the loan payment based upon a series of inputs. Now, there are 5 arguments for PMT. 2 of them are optional, and so we're going to the last 2 are optional, so we're just going to use the first 3. We see that we'll need to provide an interest rate, and so our rate will say B1 divided by 12 because the interest rate needs to be expressed on a monthly basis. Number of periods, we can either put the number of months there, or we can put the number of years and then multiply it by 12. So either way, we can reference that. The PV is known as the present value. That's the present value of the amount being either borrowed or lent, because you can be on, there's always 2 sides to a lending equation. You're either the borrower or the lender. And so the 2 optional arguments are the future value and the type. Defaults to, assumes that the future value, that the loan gets paid down to 0, and then also that you're making payments at the end of the month. So if you're not paying the loan down to 0, or if you're making payments at the beginning of the month, those are the 2 situations where you would need to use the 4th and 5th arguments. So let's go over to Excel, and I'm going to say it's a 30-year loan there.